Hi, everyone. Welcome once again to an episode of Decipher You. I'm Elizabeth Voss, Editor-in-Chief of Disobedient Media, and I'm so glad to be here with Suzie Dawson, journalist, activist, and current president of the Internet Party of New Zealand. And we're looking forward to getting started with you all. I see we have a number of people already in chat talking back and forth, so that's great to see. But good to be here.
Hey, you guys. We're pretty much on time tonight, which I'm very impressed with. And our Zoom is working and no more technical issues like last week, so that's really cool. Give me a sec. I'm just going to put my headset in.
Awesome. Yeah, and
What's been happening in your world the last week, Elizabeth?
Oh, a lot, but I don't even know where to start about that. But basically, I noticed earlier that Crockett said we're at document 130, so that makes my life easier for right now, at least. But yeah, at Disobedient Media, as far as that goes, we've been publishing articles about new analysis by the Forensicator. So if anybody remembers last year when Disobedient Media covered the Forensicator's really groundbreaking analysis that basically debunked the Russian hacking narrative, it was a new batch of analysis from him that came out that was talking specifically about the very first documents that the Goose for Two persona published, and basically the complex amount of effort that was required to make those errors show up in Cyrillic in that particular type of document. So a complex kind of bit to kind of chew on for everybody, and we have an article out on that. And then also we published an article about our conversation with Chris Blackburn, who is who is a UK political analyst, and he has worked with like the 9/11 families, around the commission. There's a whole bunch of stuff that he's been involved in. It's really interesting. But he basically was talking about the fact that Joseph Mifsud, is connected to all of these different, not only intelligence figures, but also that the campuses that he's been employed at and worked on have been places that the CIA and FBI have run seminars at. So they're hardly like shady Russian backed like campuses. They're actually like, there's no connection there with Russia. All the connections are with US and Western intelligence. So that was also a big article that we published relatively recently. Yeah.
Elizabeth, can you tell me who is Joseph Mifsud? Because I think people see this name and they don't know who it is.
Okay, Joseph Mifsud is basically the figure at the heart of the Trump-Russia collusion scandal. So there are basically all of these different arms of the Russiagate issue in general. Like you have the hacking claims, and they generally center around Goose for Two. And then you also have collusion claims, which are separate to the hacking claims. And then some of that, like there's one particular large strand of the collusion claims that totally rests on this Joseph Mifsud, Maltese quote unquote scholar who was supposed to have been a Russian asset who talked to George Papadopoulos, who was Trump's former national security advisor, or one of them. So basically, Mifsud is supposed to have told Papadopoulos that he had thousands of emails of Hillary Clinton's dirt on Hillary Clinton that the Russian government did, and et cetera, et cetera. So he's supposed to be basically this ambassador for the Russian state. And the Trump campaign. So basically, the whole idea of Trump-Russia collusion concretely rests on Mifsud being a Russian asset. And so what Chris Blackburn's research shows, and the photograph that we wrote about recently, where you have Claire Smith standing next to Mifsud, all of that shows that he is most likely and very probably a UK intelligence asset, because he's been photographed with a number of really high-ranking intelligence officials, and just like the UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, like just people that you would never be able to get in the same room with if you were a Russian intelligence asset. And these are people as well that are far too high up for them to be uninformed about his identity. Claire Smith was a really, really high up intelligence vetting on an intelligence vetting panel. The list goes on, and Chris gave us a whole lot more detail than our very first article contained about Mifsud. So yeah, it's a 10-minute digression on who Mifsud is, but I hope that gives some context, because the reason that focusing on like articles about him and about his connections, the reason that that's so important is because to show that he is a Western intelligence asset as opposed to a Russian asset basically debunks a huge section of the Russiagate collusion narrative. And, we've already at Disobedient Media kind of helped debunk the hacking narrative. So now we've got articles about both that are really critical. So that's kind of the long and short of it that I can give in like 5 or 10 minutes. But
that's awesome. What is the new forensic hater analysis?
Yeah, so basically, and I will go over to our article on that and his, but and maybe if Fly or Cockatoo, if you want to link both his research in chat as well as our article on it, I'll grab his work on it. One second. But basically, what it shows is that there was a hugely complex set of criteria that would have been necessary to even create the Cyrillic error messages. Like they had to use a very old version of a word, I think it was words like 2007. But there was a very old version of Word that would produce these errors, and that's just the start of it. Like there's a whole list of these things that you would have to do. And so the question then is, and that's, I linked in chat his analysis, and then I'll link the Disobedient Media article on it. But basically, if you are a Russian hacker and you were publishing your work, because that's what Lucifer 2 was supposed to have been and what he was supposed to have been doing. Why would you go to the insane lengths necessary to create those error messages and then just accidentally go through that many steps and then not spot them? It beggars belief that you would try to say that that's what happened. It looks way more likely that it was something like, someone who wanted those error messages to show up to create those types of Russian fingerprints, et cetera, et cetera. That's a much more likely explanation. So I'm going to just link the article from Disobedient Media about it. And I know for myself, it's very difficult to understand some of the significance of this without somebody interpreting it for me. And so I know I have total empathy with people who look at this and kind of go, okay, well, that sounds interesting, but I don't know what it means. So, I hope that we will be able to shed some more light on all of that, because the Forensic Hater is going to come out with a number of additional segments of this analysis, and we will absolutely be covering that at Disobedient Media. So we'll try to explain it in layman terms as best we can when he publishes his next segment. So this is literally like the first third of his latest research.
Wow, that's pretty phenomenal considering how significant, the 2017 research was.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the docs and see where we're at. 130. Right, so we finished on Taiwan, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. It was short, but it was also interesting.
Interesting. Little known facts about the NSA. Do you want to have a read through? And I'll make
Sure. Yeah. Are you going to share screen? Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's from SIGINT Communications and Unknown, and it was from what looks like March of 2005. It says this article was found deep in the SID Today archives, actual foreign news reports with little known facts about the NSA taken from FBIS. And it says, in the direction of the Baltic Sea, as published, and several miles from Washington, D.C., in the United States, there is a military installation like unapproachable area called Fort Meade. And they say that this area is not even indicated on maps, and not many people are actually interested in it. And it says, description of source, Pyongyang Nodong Sinmun in Korean daily newspaper of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea. Then a number, and then September 2nd. It says, and then it continues, interview with Tomislav Kresovic, political analyst for the Belgrade-based BINA agency. Quote, our people idealize the role of the CIA to such an extent that they consider it to be the biggest and best secret service in the world. However, I believe that the U.S. National Security Agency, NSA, is the most powerful espionage agency, and that it rules the world at the moment because it is capable of achieving total surveillance of our planet and implementing a strategy of total espionage. And the source for that was the Belgrade Nedelji Telegraph in Serbo-Croatian, which is privately owned weekly tabloid with a large circulation covering both official and opposition views on January 2nd. And the next source says, they did their work in silence, says the plaque dedicated to those who have fallen that greets the few who succeed in entering Crypto City, the city of secrets. It consists of 60 buildings surrounded by barbed wire and maple trees located between Washington and Baltimore. If, instead of being ignored by all the maps, it were a real city, it would be the second largest in Maryland. And, quote, every day, 38,000 employees sworn not to reveal what they do, even to their children, park their cars around the 2 black buildings that hide 2 bunkers that are proofed against any kind of interception. Inside work spies who have such abstruse titles as in charge of an anonymity, or who produce newsletters with a warning under the letterhead, destroy after reading. And the description of source there was the Milan Panorama, internet version in Italian, right of center weekly news magazine in May 2001. And then it says, you can't believe everything you read. And I think then it's just a footnote. So referencing the Baltic Sea, a reader sent in the following explanation: Baltimore equal Baltic Sea. Mare is the Latin word for sea, used in naming the dark, flat regions of the Earth's moon, etc., etc. So it looks like that was a play on words there. And it says, to say Fort Meade is between Washington, D.C. and the Baltic Sea is not an error of geography as much as it is a matter of excessive translation. It's sort of like attributing angelic powers to anyone named Michael. So interesting note. I think that looks like it's the end of the article. Suzie, if you want to scroll down a tiny bit just so I can see if that's the end of
sure.
it.
I'm just trying to process that footnote.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to read through the whole thing because, I mean, it's just pointing out that it's a play on words, but it was kind of funny anyway.
So they're saying it was a translation error of Baltimore. Yeah. Okay, I get it. Okay, so I'll stop the screen share. Okay, so as amusing as that was, I get the feeling they're kind of neither confirm nor deny on whether they have underground bunkers underneath those buildings, et cetera, et cetera. And because the source isn't the NSA, it's just the NSA reviewing foreign news reports, I don't think there's anything that we can use.
But didn't they say that they had... Did they not say at the beginning of that document that they had accidentally gotten it right? So isn't that confirming that what we're reading in those segments is true from their perspective?
It says actual foreign news reports with little known facts and quotation marks.
Okay.
So I don't read that as a confirmation.
Interesting. Well, it's funny in either case.
They're trying to make a joke, basically.
Awesome.
Interesting, though, that they're collecting foreign news sources about the NSA.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me too much because a lot of if you go to the CIA website and you're looking through their archives that they have published, a lot of, like when you're researching any topic on that site, a lot of the times it will include news articles that the agency archived because of its discussion of the CIA. I mean, again, they're not confirming it, but I've noticed when I've researched, use that to cross-reference stuff, that comes up a lot. So I don't know if that makes a difference to anyone, but
I'm just seeing all the cool people in chat. Very, very cool. Okay, next doc. So today turns 2, so they're celebrating 2 years of the publication.
Suzie, do you want to read this one?
Sure, if you like.
Yeah, I thought it'd be cool to switch back and forth.
Hard as it may be for us to believe, today is the 2nd anniversary of the SID Today webpage. We'll use this occasion to remind or inform our readers of a few things. 1, anyone can submit an article. Don't wait for us or for management to invite you to submit an article. If you have a story to tell that would be of interest to the SID workforce, take the initiative and let us know your idea. On the right-hand side of the SID Today page, you'll find the Submit an Item box. If you have some information or observations to add to an article, send a letter to the editor. We often post these letters as follow-up articles for everyone's benefit. Send us feedback at any time, blah, blah, blah. On a related note, it's time to award the second annual Sydney Award for the most admired article. We'll review positive feedback, blah, 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 and proclaim a winner. Okay, not much there. Okay, this is probably more interesting. Go for it, Liz.
Okay, so it's MGQ's Notes from the Field Part 1 from MG Richard Quirk, who is the SIGINT director, from, it looks like, April 2005. And it says, over the next 12 days, a good-sized team from the SIGINT leadership will be touring the CEMTCOM area, looking in on our customers, partners, and deployed cryptologic teammates to learn how we are doing and how we can improve. We plan to keep you informed through the, SID today. I hope you enjoy the notes and articles. And that was labeled secret, and looks like the rest of this is labeled secret as well. It says, I'm very happy to be writing to you tonight from the water palace in Baghdad. This has been an impressive day. Its most gratifying aspect has been the chance to talk to and listen to the SIGINTers and information assurance personnel who are forward-based in Qatar and Iraq. They are very excited about the positive contribution that they are able to make over here. It says, poised at the intersection between cryptologic community and our warfighting customers, they keenly sense the value of their work in a way that is sometimes difficult from back home. They are learning a great deal that they know will make them better intelligence professionals. Meanwhile, they're rewarded each and every day when their customers take their advice and run operations based on it. As they participate in operations with a wide range of appreciative partners, they are building experiences and memories that they will treasure for the rest of their lives. They are a valued part of this combat team, and they have a lot to be proud of. It is so great for me to hear them praise the other members of the global cryptologic team as they modestly give the credit to those of us who serve elsewhere in the SIGINT system. And then an unclassified section that says, from this vantage, I can see the evolution of the US SIGINT system into one single global integrated, self-aware, self-synchronizing system, as Lieutenant General Hayden likes to describe it. We're all making good progress towards this network-centric model because of your brilliant work and theirs as well. And I know that's going to be something that we're going to want to come back to. I would definitely quote that if I was writing an article about this. But anyway, so it continues in an unclassified segment saying, our transformation is coming about amidst major changes across all military and civilian efforts. It is clear in the way we are engaging this new kind of enemy. Our performance makes me proud, enthusiastic, and confident in the future. Then we're back to secret again. He says, we are witnessing the emergence of a new kind of SIGINT enterprise. The transformation is real and is happening here in Iraq and elsewhere in the SIGINT enterprise. Of course, it's still a work in progress, but our best days, and there are more great days than bad, we are truly working as a single team. It's really exciting to see the impacts this new approach is having on how and what we are delivering to the nation. And then unclassified, it says it's a different kind of military and civilian leadership and a different kind of troop, civilian and military as well, that is advancing democracy in Iraq today. It's far more agile, thinks more broadly, and is far more integrated than the world has ever seen before. It's also driven by a new kind of intelligence that is no longer simply about answering one-off customer intelligence needs, but is instead about driving the mission with insight and actionable information that leads directly to decisions, options, and outcomes at every level of the effort. This is what has me most so excited. And then he says, my thanks to all of you for all that you are doing for our nation, and especially in the global war on terrorism. To all members of the US cryptologic team, keep up your great work. And then it adds, over the next few days, I will try to send you updates on specific points up from the trip. Other members of the team may also send articles. And tonight is the first installment. I'm including a short article that I asked Blank to write from his current job as MENA analyst on the Baghdad CSG. He's a true star out there, not only because of the products he's personally produced, but also because of the professional training he has provided to so many SIGINT analysts deployed over here. And that looks like, from what I can see, the end of the article, signed MGQ. So, what did you make of that, Suzie?
Okay, so the Hayden quote sounds good and relevant, but it's actually a direct word-for-word quote.
Publicly available quote. Yeah, I thought so.
Not that it's publicly available, but I've been doing batch 4, as you know, the findings for batch 4. Writing them up on Decipher. And just today, one of the ones I was writing up was about the meeting between I'm just going to quickly pull it up so I reference it correctly. Yeah, here we go. I'll just share screen and show you guys, because you'll remember this from a previous episode as well. There can no longer be any doubt that a global spy system is in place or about who is in control of it. In a document titled SIGINT Leaders Peer into the Future and See Global System, created by the Signals Intelligence Director of the NSA, the question is asked how to make the global SIGINT system run like a well-oiled machine. And that quote is actually, I haven't put that quote into here, but that quote is word for word from the director, from the NSA director. The quote that MG Quirk is repeating in that document that we just read. So where is it? One single global integrated self-aware synchronizing system. That quote is straight out of the official directive from the director of the NSA. So they're just regurgitating it in this document, but the original finding is from the previous batch. It's a repeat of what we've already discovered, is what I'm trying to say. I think I even tweeted about it at the time. I'm pretty sure I sent a tweet. Because this is probably the singular defining factor of this entire infrastructure that they built, is that they literally are, without any shadow of a doubt, trying to control the entire planet.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. There is no doubt whatsoever. And that's why they keep going on about it being global. They want total visibility, awareness, they call it, right? Total awareness over the entire planet. And they are doing everything that they can to extend, or their extended enterprise, as they refer to it, meaning their global control system. They want it in every single country on the planet. They want total awareness, total visibility. Another one that I was recapping was where they were talking about how they have digital, I mean, this is in 2005, they're talking about how they have 100% visual coverage for digital video imagery over 35 countries at that time in 2005. But they want to be able to physically see every inch of the landmass of the planet in real time. This is their goal. They want to store every single communication of every single person. They want to visually see every single location, and they want access to the intelligence systems, resources, apparatus, hardware, and networks of every spy agency on the planet.
And it's really interesting then when you apply that like artificial intelligence to that, because of the amount of man hours that would be necessary to make sense of all of that information, that, you know, having that level of global vision, as you're describing, would take a huge amount of time to sift through in order to find what is interesting, relevant to whatever customer. So we already know that there is Project Maven happening between Google and the US military, and it's supposed to be to fight ISIS, but I mean, it's really, really disturbing when you apply that and, you know, AI fueled analysis of, you know, this huge amount of data that you're describing. I think that's going to be a much more feasible goal in the very near future for them, for sure.
I think that 35 countries is over 100 countries today.
Yeah.
And I think that the number of countries that they are not controlling the networks and systems of probably around a dozen.
Yeah, and I mean, even those countries, I'm sure that they have, I'm sure even there they have a lot of ability to monitor various different infrastructure and systems just because of the nature of the tools that they have available. So
sure, so they can like penetrate networks and degrade and destroy networks and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I mean is the countries who they have not subjugated the intelligence infrastructures of in the way that they have with all of the other partner countries and partner agencies is probably a dozen or less.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's some really big ones there, you know, Russia, China, India, that's like not entirely small.
Definitely. I'm just checking out chat really fast. And I see just one note about what we were talking about before about Mifsud. Mr. K said Joseph Mifsud is a member of the European Council of Foreign Relations, ECFR, which was funded through the George Soros Open Society Foundation. I haven't been able to find confirmation of that. Joseph Mifsud himself did claim that he was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations in Europe, and he also claimed to have been a member of the Clinton Foundation as well. And there was no record of him being a member of the Clinton Foundation, but he did donate to them. There is record of a Joseph Mifsud donating to the Clinton Foundation. So, and that, leads into a whole lot of other tangents about connections in various parts of Russiagate and the Russiagate scandal to the Clinton Foundation and all of that. So, but I just wanted to comment on that particular comment in chat.
I've just dug up the tweet that I was referring to. It's here. It was actually Boxing Day, 26th of December, 2017. NSA is one step closer to building a single, integrated, global, self-aware, self-synchronizing global enterprise, is the direct quote. So it was originally from Batch 4. I found actually one of the most interesting things in that document, which we haven't discussed yet, and if I just pull it up again, is where they say, it's really exciting to see the impacts this new approach is having on how and what we are delivering to the nation. And the reason I find that to be particularly interesting is because this is the premise under which they sell what they do to their own staff. How and what we do for the nation. But what is it exactly that they're doing for the nation? Destroying country after country is serving the USA in what way? Okay, shall we move on to the next doc?
Sure. I believe, are you reading this one, or I've forgotten which one we were at? I like going back and forth and each reading one and then switching back to the other person reading. I think that works.
Also, this new kind of enemy. Those are other keywords there. This new kind of enemy, and you ask yourself, what kind of enemy and how are they new? I think what's new is the manufacturing of the enemy rather than the enemy itself.
Yeah.
I mean, facing insurgencies in Middle Eastern countries is not exactly outside the realm of experience of the United States. So that can't be the new enemy. So what is the new enemy? They don't actually stipulate what it is. I'll make a note of that as supplementary to the other document, the global self-aware document. Okay, moving on. Okay, is it my turn to read or your turn to read? My turn, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's your turn.
Okay, here we go. Would you like fries with that report? Working the grill is a phrase that I use to casually reference my job and have thrown around among the close friends that I've had the pleasure to work with over the last few years. Like the many linguists and analysts at the agency, I've always drawn a lot of pride from the hard work and support that occurs every day stateside. As great as that has been, it's tough to compare to the work going on at the grill, and it's not just flipping burgers. In September of 2004, I was asked whether I'd consider serving as the MENA representative at the CSG and replace a good friend who would be departing in January 2005. I jumped at the opportunity, and despite not fully knowing the extent of the role I'd be filling, I was confident of the impact that would be made. Because besides, it was a great chance to trade in my set of linguist cans for an analyst hat. I can barely express how huge an experience this TDY has turned out to be for me. It's been gratifying being able to support the tactical warfighter on a daily basis. Also, seeing a small bit of the world that is passing through its own historic times has been quite remarkable. Ironically, though, the one tidbit I hadn't really considered before was the newer set of tools I'd been exposed to and could hone while here. Along with serving as the representative for MENA and supporting the mission between forward and home, I've acquired a number of tools to go along with my set of cans that I know will make me an even better linguist or analyst upon my return. I imagine my bosses back home won't want me to fully trade in my set of cans for the analyst hat when I get back, nor do I want to, but I certainly think they'll be getting someone back who can cook up more than just cheeseburgers on the grill. Would you like, what the I mean,
some of the stuff we read in here,
like, what the hell? What in the hell has this got
yeah.
to do with what kind of, why use this analogy of burgers and fries and cooking? And this is lost on me.
I think that these SID Today documents are often really cheesy and corny. There's a few of them that we've read like that, where it's just like, just really bad sense of humor or something.
I just don't understand what being a linguist or an analyst or supporting the tactical warfighter on the ground, which means basically boots on the ground in Iraq. What the hell has that got to do with burgers, fries, and... Okay. Definitely missing the significance there. The next document we can skip, but it's interesting in the fact that they are recruiting for positions at the Pentagon. And they're recruiting from the... Okay, actually we'll have a quick look at this, but there's not much to read. I'll just show you guys. So there's been a lot of discussion about CIA, NSA staff moving back and forward between the two agencies, which is pretty much standard for them to do. We know from these documents it's standard for them to do. Here we see that there are opportunities at the Pentagon, and they say, are you seeking more money, a promotion or an increase, a step increase, or an opportunity to engage a customer supporting the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Secretary of Defense? So the Pentagon is directly recruiting out of the NSA workforce.
I think that's noteworthy, unless it's something that was already openly known.
Should I make a note of it?
I mean, I think it's just like a one-line finding,
Yeah, I guess if we phrase it as like CIA is not alone in recruiting NSA employees, the Pentagon is also doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just helps add to that picture that we already have of the revolving doors between the agencies and outside the agencies as well, between some of these corporate entities and whatever.
Oh, wow. Joseph Mifsud was in the European Council on Foreign Relations.
Yeah, well, that's what I just a few minutes ago I responded to that, because he said that he was, but as far as I'm aware, there's no confirmation of that at this point. There is confirmation that he donated to the Clinton Foundation, and there's definitely confirmation that people associated with the Trump-Russia collusion scandal are also associated with the Clinton Foundation, including Alexander Downer, who's a huge part of this whole Mifsud story. So
Mr. K has just dropped the PDF link in chat.
Oh, does it show it? Great.
That shows he was a participant in the 10th annual meeting.
Yeah.
Of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Yeah, I know that. I know that, but I don't know that I don't know if there's confirmation that he was a member of. Does that make sense?
Oh, right. Yep.
Like membership is not attendance. So, yeah.
Correct. Participant.
But yeah, it's still significant.
That's really well. That it also is an organization that would vet its participants, like,
yes,
very
exactly.
well. Almost everybody in there has a high level clearance.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm not discounting that point. He could have been a member, but I don't know if anybody's been able to show that yet. That's all.
Okay, let's move on. This should be amusing. Oversight training.
All right. Do you want me to read this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. So required reading from MG Richard Quirk in the USA, Signals Intelligence Director. It says annual intelligence oversight training, unclassified. The right to privacy is one of the fundamental privileges of all Americans. A number of legal and policy documents have been put in place to guarantee that government agencies, including NSA, protect these rights in the course of their duties. Today, I remind you that once a year, every NSA employee, without exception, must take some time to review those documents that govern our activities. Interesting. I will also tell you how you can conveniently meet this annual requirement for intelligence oversight training. It is important that all SID employees, including civilians, military contractors, and integrees, understand the authority under which we carry out NSA mission, as well as the Fourth Amendment-derived restrictions placed upon the execution of the mission. Reviewing the below documents on an annual basis fulfills the minimum oversight training in SID. And then it says the primary document governing the NSA's intelligence activities is Executive Order 12333. And I remember that we've looked at this before, and I know that Suzie brought this up before. In addition, NSA employees are subject to DoD Regulation 5240, 1R, and NSA Policy 123, both of which implement the Executive Order. For SID employees, USSID 18 provides the SIGINT minimization procedures required by these documents and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Finally, NSCID 6 defines SIGINT and prescribes the conduct of SIGINT activities. And then it says you can access these documents and register your compliance at the following website, which is redacted. And then it says all SID employees are required to review these documents by the end of the fiscal year, which is 30th of September 2005. For more information on this intelligence oversight training, see the Companions of Today article by et cetera, SID's Senior Oversight Executive. If you come across any questionable intelligence activities, report them to the NSA Office of Inspector General, the Office of General Counsel, and SID Oversight and Compliance. That's interesting. I think this document is pretty interesting, don't you?
We've actually seen this precise document word for word in the previous 2 years' batches. So this is something that they spit out to the workforce every single year, and it's basically just putting them on notice that they have to have read those documents.
Yeah, I remember seeing a couple of these, but I still think it's interesting. And if it was in the other word for word documents, then ignore me. But I thought it was interesting that they're outlining in their heads the governance when, as we looked up, as we found in our research about that, there isn't like a solid. It doesn't seem like there's a solid, oversight, at least legally. I don't. Do you get what I'm trying to say there?
Well, yeah, from our research, the NSA is in charge of creating the NSA's directives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like they're being really two-faced with this. Like, they're issuing this because they have to legally, but in practice, they're just telling people, read these documents, right? And that's the extent of it, is that once a year you have to read these 4 documents.
Which is probably read about as much as people read the terms and conditions for Apple or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then what happens to people who do complain to the Office of Inspector General, the Office of General Counsel?
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure it was the Office of General Counsel that Snowden sent his questions through to about what was being done. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the Office of General Counsel. And we know that others, including Tom Drake, have been down the path of the Inspector General and even to Congress and gotten absolutely nowhere. And then one of those office holders, I can't remember which one of them was, actually came out and openly admitted relatively recently. They said, he was asked, what would happen if someone came to you with a complaint? And he said, literally, he would not listen to them. He would turn a blind eye.
That's crazy.
I would love someone to find the source link to that. to that interview. I assume it was the Office of Inspector General. And I would say it was approximately a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago. He was specifically asked how he would handle such complaints when they came to him. And he openly admitted they wouldn't do anything about them.
Interesting. Sorry, I'm just sitting here staring when the camera comes on again. But
That's
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so are you ready for the next document, do you think?
So Cockatoo says this document is telling them how to whistleblow.
I don't know if it's whistleblowing in their minds. I think it would be like accountability, or the word oversight comes to mind. I think, and in chat, disagree with me if you feel like it, or Suzie, tell me if you think I'm wrong. But wouldn't you say that whistleblowing is generally done like outside the agency or the corporation or the entity that you're whistleblowing on?
No, you can whistleblow internally, but the question is what happens when you whistleblow internally? Yeah. So,
True.
For example, there's the tens of thousands of rape and sexual assault cases in the US military, and many of those women whistleblew on officers and other colleagues who had raped or sexually assaulted them, and they were retaliated against for having whistleblown. Some of them in really horrific ways. They were, called crazy, sent to psychiatrists, demoted, kicked out of the military, and God knows what else. So saying that you can whistleblow is one thing, but what happens when you do whistleblow is the real question.
Definitely.
And exactly as Shelley says, it's a broken system. Whistleblowers are not rewarded. That's what it comes down to. They're not rewarded. They're punished. They are punished for it. And that's what I mean about them being two-faced, because on one side of things, they're saying, look, if you see anything questionable, you can report this. But what the actual result of the report is the whistleblower being investigated rather than the conduct. So good. You're absolutely right. So good just said, this happens even on a small scale with local police. Like you try and this is an absolutely classic example. In New Zealand, if you have an issue with, like, for example, we found police officers who had perfect replica fake IDs, replicas of real IDs, fake badge numbers that they were wearing when they were deliberately trying to disguise their identities or mask their identities when they knew that what they were doing was actually illegal. So it was a display of premeditation. And when we complained to the Independent Police Complaints Authority, which is not independent, it's actually the police force. They call it the Independent Police Conduct Authority, Police Complaints Authority, but in fact it's just a department of the police. And they took a year to supposedly investigate, and then at the end of the year they said, oh, we don't have sufficient resources to investigate this complaint, so therefore we're not investigating it. So there's no justice. Even when you follow the official channels, you get the same thing with the press councils, actually. So, a publication libels, I mean, there are cases where the privacy of children have been breached by major corporate media in New Zealand, and then they go and file complaints with the Press Council of New Zealand. And if you go and look at the Press Council of New Zealand, they list all of their findings. And over and over and over and over again, I think I analysed it, it was something like in excess of 80, maybe 90%, I think over 90% actually, of the cases, they do not find in favour of the complainant. They find in favour of the press org. And even where they admit that there was a breach, they still find in favour of the press org. So there were complaints that I read through where they say, yes, the privacy of this child was breached. Yes, this was a violation of the rules. However, we are finding in favour of the press org. And that's just, to me, is unbelievable. But that's what's happening. So these oversight mechanisms become whitewashing agencies, basically. They're there to suppress, to minimise, and to divert from the actual merit of the complaint.
And I think that's such a universal dynamic and mechanism that, I mean, I literally wrote an article in the last couple of months. It was titled, "For truth tellers like Princess Latifah, there is no justice." And my thought when coming up with that was not just the case of her being kidnapped when she was trying to break free of the situation she was in, but also I was thinking about people like Khalif Browder who were imprisoned without ever being convicted of a crime. And the reason he was kept in Rikers for so long was because he refused to go with a plea deal that would have admitted guilt when he wasn't guilty. And so that's why he was kept in prison for so long. And, like, and like I'm saying, like the types of situations like this are almost universal, whether it's like in the American justice system, quote unquote justice system, or whether it's an intelligence agency or a personal situation like Latifah is going through. It seems that that's the way our planet operates, and it's really sad to have to say that it's that pervasive.
Absolutely. And I think, again, this is why it's so two-faced, because while they put it in their official communications, they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's by saying you need to do this, the culture of the organization is such that employees know full well what will happen to them if they complain. They are fully aware of what will happen to them. And again, that ties back to Snowden, when he says he would talk to other people and say, hey, like, is this right what we're doing? Is this, do you think this is problematic, or is it just me? And they would say to him, yeah, it's problematic, but for God's sakes, don't say anything about it because you will kiss your career goodbye. So
definitely,
at a cultural level, they were fully aware of what would happen if they made waves within the organization.
And you can also see the result of that in what Julian Assange is going through as well. Like, so he's publishing these types of documents that are sent to him by whistleblowers in various different situations, and he's being so hugely punished for simply publishing them. So,
right. So it is WikiLeaks is whistleblowing, on behalf of others. And the whistleblowing on Walker. Actually, I mean, I was thinking this the other day. I was thinking, like, for some reason, we can prosecute the crimes of the past, but we can't prosecute the crimes of the present. So we can go after, Nazi war criminals from the 30s, but we can't go after war criminals from last year or this year. And it seems...
well, yeah. We go after the Nazi war criminals that we don't hire, like Werner von Braun and etc. So, I mean... it's just really awful all around. But.
Right, but even Yugoslavia, it seems like there's a 30-year stand-down period for war crimes.
Exactly. Very true.
Okay, let's move on. Field Station Rattler. From the SIG Director, Special Assistant. On 1st of April, the SID team with MG Quick travelled to the International Zone, which is where he was just writing his last missives from, which is an area of Baghdad formerly known as the Green Zone. Interesting that they renamed it from the Green Zone to the International Zone. This area of the city has a great concentration of US personnel as well as other high-level organizations and representatives of Iraq and other nations. It is a key sector of the city and has been identified by the CJ SOTFA app. I assume it will tell us what that is, as an important locus in the battle with the insurgency. So let's scroll down and see. No, it actually doesn't tell us. While there, we visited the embassy and met with several high-level officials, including Ambassador Jeffrey, the Baghdad Chief of Station, Brigadier General Kett, British Army and Deputy C2 for MNFI, and Brigadier General Select Alston, USAF Deputy Chief of Staff STRATCOM. These gentlemen are all enthusiastic customers of SIG analysis and reporting, and passed along their impressions of the issues of greatest importance for national decision makers and for progress in the democratization of Iraq, many of which have been shared with you in notes from NG Quick and others on this trip. Suffice it to say that their interest and concerns focus on defeating the insurgency and improving security, personified by the hunt for Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. We also had the opportunity to meet and talk with teams from Data Acquisition, Foreign Affairs Directorate, and RAD, all of whom are engaged in work to improve the SIG system in Iraq and to help build a competent domestic Iraqi SIGINT organization, which we've discussed before, the US literally building, running, and deploying the Iraqi spies. In the afternoon, we left the relatively plush surroundings of the embassy and environs to meet with another, perhaps somewhat less flashy element of the global SIGINT system. Headquartered at a building dubbed the No Heads Palace, so named because it had been framed by 4 huge busts of Saddam Hussein, all destroyed, the 4th Brigade Combat Team of the 3rd Infantry Division is tasked with patrolling and defending the international zone and defeating elements of the insurgency encountered in its area of operations. Arriving at the No Heads Palace, the team found itself huffing and puffing, climbing 8 flights of dusty, cracked marble stairs in full battle rattle, helmet, body armor, and weapons. Coming up to a secure compartmentalized information facility area at the top of the building, we entered the world of a tactical SIGINT site. Outside the site, someone had scrawled the title Field Station Rattler. 4 BCT is an example of the Army's modular unit of action that it is trying to develop while fighting a war. It is one of 4 brigades controlled by 3rd Infantry Division. The brigade is served by a SIGINT platoon led by somebody and somebody else. The platoon operates a Prophet Hammer system with 1 roof server and target high-powered cordless phone targets in their local area, as well as GSM targets forwarded to the unit's 1 roof server. The platoon has 6 Arab linguist operator collectors, all top secret cleared soldiers, so they have the ability to shift effort from HPCP to GSM, which is the high-powered cordless phone, to GSM mobile, or to whatever other target they need to work. Thanks to Director NSA's tactical initiatives, the platoon has NSA net connectivity and operates in concert with counterparts at Cobra Focus and GRSOC. One of the linguists told me that they routinely seek assistance from Fort Gordon when they get a cut of traffic that is difficult, but they believe it to be important. Also, they receive some support from the CST, Cryptologic Support Team, integrated at 3rd Infantry Division. The SIGINT platoon has 2 analysts who have attended Geo Boot Camp and should have access to the Big 6 national databases, but unfortunately do not yet have them. It seems there are some matters in the Annex P process that have yet to be completed before the access will be turned on. In the meantime, they are definitely feeling the problem of not having access to those databases. Without that, they are unable to do effective target development on handsets of interest for their area of operations. They try to do some tasking based on lead information they derive from local human reports, pocket litter, and confiscated handsets. The soldiers of 4 BCT SIGINT platoon do manage to provide some local area situational awareness, and they prepare a periodic summary of activity for the brigade commander and the S2 intelligence officer. They do this after sanitizing all activity to the secret level. The SIGINT is operating under very austere conditions. Their skiff is hot, dusty, and has few accessories beyond a couple of laptops, some hard copy working aids, and a few maps. But it is apparent that they're performing their mission as effectively and professionally as they can. On the small whiteboard over the OIC's desk, there is a bullet under a task list that reminds them to complete the US SID 18 download for their local training. It is evident that they are able to maintain their adherence to all the appropriate policies and guidance because they are plugged into the global network and maintain contact and dialogue with some of their counterparts in CONUS. We take away from our visit, the task is to help them learn about all the organizations and activities in CONUS with which they can partner and to whom they can turn for support. At last, we all circle out on the rooftop for a series of group shots with our team and theirs. Photo ops. One of the soldiers relates to MG Quirk how the SIGINT director had visited them in the 3rd ID in Kuwait before the invasion of Iraq. The sergeant told MG Quirk that he'd given them an inspiring speech about their mission and how they would be breaking new ground and the targets they'd be pursuing in the coming battle, encrypted voice, frequency hoppers, etc. He says it was a speech they all remembered. Frequency hoppers, I find that very interesting, that terminology. Now they're back in Iraq, this time fighting counterinsurgency war, and again breaking new ground against the personal communications that are the medium of their new foes. We leave them having tried to remind that they are part of a wider global team, but as we all scramble back down the 8 flights of stairs and load back into our armoured transport, we privately have to admit our admiration for those young SIGINTers manning field station rattler and defending the international zone of Baghdad.
Interesting. You seem to stop at a number of points that you found interesting. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that one?
Not really in and of itself interesting. I found frequency hopping to be interesting because of the idea that they're using obviously different frequencies, the same target. I hate using the word target because it's so horrible. It's so sanitized and horrible. But yeah, I found frequency hopping as a concept to be interesting. Okay, there's another report from that same team in Baghdad, so I'll let you read it.
Okay, it says it's titled "Hello from Iraq," from Cindy Farkas, who is Deputy Director of Analysis and Production in S2. And it says, Cindy Farkas here on travel with MG Quirk and a group of NSA CSS leaders. The team includes blank, Charles Berlin, Dave Hurry, blank, Chief Wally Price, and blank. Our trip began Monday evening, 28th of March 2005, with a couple of long commercial flights, arriving in Qatar on Tuesday night. After a little bit of confusion with my CAC card at the airport, I was finally allowed into the country. We spent a short night at Camp Asalia, working with site personnel and resting for our flight to Baghdad on Wednesday morning. Following a hearty breakfast at the dining facility, we were driven to the airport, stopping at the grab and go on the way to ensure we didn't get too hungry en route. We were issued weapons and were loaded into a C-130 for the 3-hour flight to Baghdad. During the flight, we were able to view some of the countryside and take photos at the back of the plane with the cargo and US flag. We'll try and get some of those photos to you. We donned our body armor and helmets and experienced a well-executed spiral landing onto the runway at Baghdad International Airport. We were met by Ron Karbach, NCR Iraq, and his deputy, Redacted. After a short but rather bumpy ride, we arrived at Camp Victory and were shown to our quarters in a place formerly used as a resort. Quite an ornate facility, to say the least. We had a fabulous lunch at Sport Arena DFAC, which offered everything from Mongolian barbecue, Mexican and Italian cuisine, salad bar, hot foods, to a myriad of desserts, which included Baskin-Robbins ice cream and milkshakes. After we visited the CST, Cryptologic Support Team, and had a chance to talk with folks about their experiences, we heard about what they do each and every day. There really aren't any weekends here. The days are very busy and go by very quickly. You could sense their excitement and satisfaction in fusing SIGINT with other INTs to support current and planned operations. CST members range from very experienced military and civilian personnel to interns and junior enlisted, as well as our second-party partners. Personnel formerly assigned to the MOC were on duty and were eagerly putting the skills learned in the MOC to use in supporting coalition forces and a key customer set. The junior military personnel and civilian interns were effusive in describing their experiences and how much it had developed them professionally and personally. An Australian warrant officer was serving as the shift battle captain, and in his words, providing him with an unprecedented view of operations and situational awareness. And then it says, BG Yellen, commander at JIATF FRE, which is former regime elements, forward briefed our group on their organization, mission, and success. Ensuring all cogs in the production wheel are working in sync, not just running at the same time, is critical to the efforts in the interdiction of key former regime elements in or transiting Iraq. Next, we were briefed on Tarex and the Media Processing Center. There have been many successes for these elements. However, additional attention is needed on the role Tarex can play in the SIGINT development world and in determining the extent of forward deployed media processing capabilities. There are opportunities to leverage the broader enterprise to gain a better understanding of information needs and to share knowledge and awareness from different perspectives. One of the IAD representatives here gave us an overview of his role in providing cross-domain solutions that assist in information sharing. From the discussions, it was clear that he served serves in both strategic and tactical roles in providing products and services. His ability to provide local support and technical expertise and reach back to the enterprise has enabled our forces to operate securely in a coalition environment using the best available technologies and services. And some of the key points made throughout the day included a need for tools and technologies to deal with volume, variety, and velocity, training on and access to appropriate databases, constant and consistent communications and information sharing, the need for a common understanding of situational awareness and all perspectives, the real-world examples of offensive and defensive mission blending, and the need for policies and processes that support and enable a global, self-aware, self-synchronizing cryptologic system. And it says more to come as our adventure continues. And the article was initially published as a message to the S2 workforce on the 1st of April, 2005. So, and it also says that she continued her travelogue on so-and-so days.
Okay, so once again, we see her regurgitating the NSA director's language.
Definitely.
I don't know what is up with them making it sound like it's a holiday. You get to stay in a resort. You get to eat Mexican food.
And Baskin-Robbins ice cream. And milkshakes.
And milkshakes.
Yes.
On basically occupied land.
Yeah, I would place that into the same category as the documents that we've looked at that try to kind of almost sex Baghdad up as this great place that you want to go. I think that's definitely like an angle that we've seen over and over again.
Okay, this is about to take a really dark turn, and I'm going to discuss some things that might be upsetting to you guys, but I think that it's important to do.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, just be aware. So the reason I say that is because there is quite an infamous video on YouTube. I don't know if it's since been censored, but it was quite infamous a few years ago. It is a home video, like taken with a cell phone, and it is of the cousin of a soldier who was deployed in Iraq, talking to his cousin about what he saw and what was going on in the international zone. And
okay.
the cousin talks about the girls, the local girls who were, PTSD warning for real for what I'm about to talk about. It's disgusting and horrific. The cousin is essentially bragging about how they would take, because you've got to understand, well, these guys are eating Baskin-Robbins ice cream and Mexican food. The average Iraqi was on 4 hours of electricity a day, was not able to cook, did not have food, did not have money, did not have employment, did not have the basics of human life. And when you are in that situation, women of a certain age, despicably of quite a young age, become a commodity, and their bodies become the only thing that they have to trade in order to sustain their families and themselves and to keep themselves alive. And this particular soldier was bragging about the girls that they would bring into the local Iraqi young woman that they would bring into the facility, and that there was no oversight whatsoever of this occurring. And some of the girls were taken there, did not just come in for the purposes of prostitution, but some of them were actually being kidnapped and brought into the green zone. And he talks about one girl in particular who they brought in, and he said that she was being pimped out to the soldiers for $100 a pop or something by one of the soldiers. Basically kept her captive in the green zone and was selling her to other soldiers, renting her to other soldiers, however you want to put it. And yeah, it's really upsetting, Jinx, and it's disgusting. And he talks about the fact that one day the girl hung herself. She actually committed suicide inside the green zone, and they had to get rid of her body. And apparently this is quite the prostitution aspect was a widespread aspect of what was going on, and it was seen as something that was normal. I mean, there's always been rape and war. there's always been prostitution, and why that doesn't make either of those things okay. Shell is saying trafficking across the world, the US military industrial complex with their 800 bases. And thank you, Suzie.
Yeah, I think that what you said is really true about it being so common, even though it's so evil, because, I mean, in the Balkans, and we were huge amounts of human trafficking that was perpetrated by paramilitary groups like DynCorp. And, at the time, they were working for the United Nations. And for that, and because of that, they had immunity from prosecution completely. So, like, there are a whole lot of really horrific things that happen, both by the militaries of nations, by the United Nations peacekeepers, and by paramilitary groups that are just hired. And oftentimes they are the ones doing the, quote, dirty work that the government doesn't want to be responsible for. So this is a huge and very common horror that goes along with war, but the one that is not reported enough, for sure. Absolutely not reported enough.
Absolutely. And, it happens on all sides, all of the factions who are fighting. And, I mean, it happens in the NGOs, it happens in the UN, it happens on both sides, whether it's ISIS raping and kidnapping women, or whether it's the US military, taking these girls into the green zone and holding them captive there.
And there can be a crossover too, because the Bakabazi young boys in Afghanistan are also an abused target group by both the US military and the local population. So it's a really, like, it's not just women that are affected by that, but to a great extent it is women.
Absolutely, it's children, it's boys and girls, men and women.
Yeah.
But the reason that I pointed this out and told the story is because, and sure enough, with that publicly on YouTube, and so many people watching that video, zero investigation, zero justice, nothing whatsoever done about it. But I told that story because that is the other side of the Baskin Robbins ice cream,
absolutely,
and the Mexican food. So while the NSA creates these documents, sends them all out to the workforce going, yeah, it's great to be, we'll be by the pool and you'll be eating, Mexican food and Mongolian barbecue. The reality of what was occurring in the green zone is vastly different than what these executives are reporting back to the workforce after their little jaunts. Because sure enough, they are not, assumedly not, and I certainly hope not, they are not participating in the daily on the ground side of what's happening in that base. They are coming in for a 2 or 3 or 4 or 7 day guided tour of what officially the green zone is supposed to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
But the reality of what was happening is being buried.
Yeah, and I think you can expand that too to the whole subject of war itself, because, I mean, in all of these documents we're looking at, we don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of civilians that are killed in Iraq during this period. And we're not hearing about, like, the devastation that happens for the local people at all. If anything, a few episodes of Decipher a year ago, when we looked at the fact that the Iraqis were being used as cannon fodder when they were supposed to be creating an independent intelligence service, we don't hear about it in those terms. We hear about it as, oh, look, we're helping them, so kind of.
The only mention of Iraqi civilians that I can remember in all of these documents, other than the generalization, we are bringing democracy to Iraq. The only mention of actual Iraqi civilians is when they said that they brought Christmas to Baghdad.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
When Baghdad was already a secular nation that had Christians, Iraqi Christians, that had all different ethnic and religious groups able to practice their religions, they didn't bring Christmas to Baghdad. They fucking destroyed 15 Christmases in Baghdad.
Definitely. Absolutely.
But yet again, that's the way they sell it to the workforce. Okay, sorry for that
Very
dark
disturbing.
turn. I'm actually not sorry for that dark turn, because the only justice that girl might ever get is us acknowledging her existence and the fact that happened to her. Even though we don't know her name, even though we don't know the circumstances.
I am always 100% on the side of talking about disturbing things as opposed to letting them be unsaid for the sake of my own or anybody else's discomfort. I think that's the spirit of what we're doing here in Decipher You, and it's the spirit of what WikiLeaks does. I mean, it shows us the reality behind the stupid facade and the talking points that we're given. And just personally, I'm somebody that believes that it's much, much better to be uncomfortable and hear that dark reality than to, as you're saying, let it go unmentioned and not experience that discomfort that is nothing in the face of what that girl and others like her actually experienced. Like, that level of suffering is so much worse than anything that any of us would feel in response to hearing about it. I think it's better to acknowledge it and be uncomfortable. But that's just my take. I know some people don't feel that way, so I respect that too, but that's my opinion. And, when we are talking about that, I do think it's definitely fair to have a trigger warning for people. But yeah, it's never going to bother me personally to talk about the more horrifying aspects of what we're looking at.
Okay, let's see. I think I've got 2 more documents open and then I'd like to wrap it tonight.
Sure. Yeah, we've been going for just over an hour.
I'm actually going to address that contrast. So I'm just adding it to notes.
Yeah, no, I think pointing that out is great. And in a general way too, it doesn't have to be just that document, but a number of the ones like the Christmas in Baghdad and other ones where they talk about how Baghdad is not that bad. Definitely writing down that reality is what is going on behind the scenes is important. And it brings up what Julian Assange actually noted. And, anybody who's read WikiLeaks or all the Snowden documents should understand that just because they are accurate documents in terms of, yes, they were written by the NSA and published amongst the NSA workforce as the SID Today files, or the WikiLeaks just because they're the emails of the DNC and et cetera, doesn't mean that what is said in those documents is true. And so it is important to step back and say, okay, this is what these documents within the NSA are saying, but the reality was much different. And so I think people sometimes confuse the fact that the documents are real documents with them always having truthful information. I've seen people kind of make that mistake a few times. So I think pointing that out is important for sure.
Okay. Oh, there's actually only 1 document left. All right. Area Studies Seminar, US Foreign and Security Policy.
I think it's your turn to read this one.
Okay. Area 4101, with academic and government speakers focusing on Africa south of the Sahara, sponsored by the NSA Senior Council. The Senior Council is pleased to announce this course, which is offered by NSA Cryptologic School, with presentations by speakers from George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs for the first 2 days. The 3rd day, afternoon presentations will be by distinguished government officials. Despite the concerns of Iraq and the global war on terrorism, crises in sub-Saharan Africa continue to demand the attention of US policymakers. Sorry, crises like not being able to get our West African oil flow fast enough. Area 4101 will examine some of the key issues for sub-Saharan Africa and for US diplomacy in sub-Saharan Africa. The involvement of external players, including Europe, Nordic countries, Brazil, Iran, India, and China, will be discussed, as will the topics of corruption, the impact of the Millennium Challenge account. Wonder what that is. I'd like you guys to research that if you can. If you can find anything about it, please. Millennium Challenge account. And the vitality of NEPAD, the New Partnership for African Development. South Africa will be addressed in particular, focusing on AIDS in the economy. Nigeria will likewise be a country of focus, and Nigerian oil is pretty far up the list of what these guys are trying to get their hands on. I'll just quickly ask chat to
I looked that up. I actually just got a result that it's something about the White House and President Bush calling for a new compact for global development defined by new accountability for both rich and poor nations alike. And greater contributions must be linked to greater responsibility for developing nations. And Bush pledged that the United States would lead by example and increase the core development assistance by 50% over the next 3 years, resulting in an annual increase of $5 billion by 2006. I'm throwing this into chat really fast for the Etherpad, if somebody can throw it in there.
I get the feeling that there is a whole lot more to development, and that includes UN development. And of course, ex-Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, is head of the United Nations Development Program. I think there's a whole lot more to development than, building new water supplies.
Yeah, and there are a few government links that I'm throwing down too. Yeah, no, it's definitely there is something called the Millennium Challenge account. There's also a Millennium Challenge Corporation, which I'm not sure if that's directly tied to this or not. I'm just throwing the government docs in about the account, and it looks like there's stuff going on in Indonesia and a bunch of other places. So
if you could add those to the Etherpad, you guys, that would be really, really helpful for us to come back and study after the fact. Thank you. Okay, I'll keep going.
Awesome.
The seminar will also address terrorism in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the impact of Wahhabism and Islamic fundamentalism. See, if they were worried about Wahhabism or Islamic fundamentalism, they could start in Saudi Arabia. The ways in which several African regions from insecurity communities, making conflicts easy to initiate, difficult to terminate, and a breeding ground for transnational problems will also be discussed. Academic speakers include a former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, a former ambassador to several African nations, and several recognized experts on Africa. The government speakers include the current National Intelligence Officer for Africa on the National Intelligence Council, and senior policy coordinators coming from the State Department and the Office of the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon. How to enroll, blah, 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 blah. Submit request, blah, 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 blah. That's it. Okay, I think that was relatively interesting. Just for having brought up that aspect, I've got the gut feeling that's a whole massive kettle of fish right there.
The Millennium Action account, whatever. Yeah, I agree.
Really good. And we wouldn't have otherwise known it existed if it wasn't for reading that document. Okay, do you guys in chat have any questions for us? Because we are going to keep this stream pretty short. Oil is national security, says Barbara. To these people, yes. So good. Acquisition of oil has become indistinguishable from what's deemed national security. Thank you guys so much for being here and for researching with us. It is super cool and I really appreciate it.
And we'll be back tomorrow because as we've said before, as Susie's pointed out before, we're starting a new schedule as of this week, which will be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as opposed to Tuesday, Friday. And I'm sure that you guys know that, but I'm just reminding you guys that we'll be here tomorrow, same time and all that.
Yeah, I'm super impressed. We've had a really good turnout tonight and like a decent number of people watching, considering this is the first Wednesday that we've ever done Decipher on.
Exactly. So I appreciate you guys for showing up and tuning in and joining us. It's been really good, maybe not fun, but a good productive segment of Decipher You.
Okay, I think that's it for today. No questions, you guys? Last chance. I don't know how long the buffer is on YouTube, so I'm not sure if they've even got to see that yet.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit shorter than it was last time. Because last time I noticed there was a good few minutes of lag, like at least 5 minutes. It was pretty bad. But I think tonight it's been less.
Oh, that's so sweet. And we've got big news for you guys next Monday, which I think you'll be very interested in.
Definitely. On the 7th, keep your eyes out for news.
So we will see you tomorrow night. We're back for the next 2 nights in a row. So that's why we'll keep the stream short and we'll keep powering through the documents. Crochet, is the sun up? Yeah, that was what I was looking at. If you saw me looking just a moment ago, I was looking out the window at the sunrise. It's nearly sunrise. Dawn is here anyway. What do I like to do in Russia for fun? I'm really boring. I'm really, really boring. What I like to do at the moment is ride around on a kid's scooter. And that's about as exciting as things get.
I approve of that hobby. It sounds fun.
Yeah. I like to eat too much. Way too much. I like food. Russian food is amazing. I don't drink. Sorry. No Novichok and no vodka. I completely agree with you, Fly, that empathy equals humanity. And I totally echo that sentiment. Thank you all for caring. And thank you for being here. Really, really, really cool. Okay. Night, you guys.
Night, everyone. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.